Congress, San Mateo County in Congress, for 32 years. And I'm so proud that for my final term, our congressional district included the entire coast side for the very first time. So it is, it's a bittersweet time for me. It's a time for me to, go off and smell the roses. And, but I will forever be grateful for the privilege of representing Half Moon Bay, working with people in the community. It's a community that has welcomed me really with all of its heart. I'm very proud that I was the very first woman and the very first Democrat in the history of the district to elected to represent it. And I'm very proud of the bipartisan body of work I've been able to accomplish to help not only the people of our district, but the entire country. During my 16 terms in Congress, 5 presidents have signed 68 of my bills into law, and I'm proud of that body of work. Since Half Moon Bay was once again included in my congressional district 2 years ago, I've made supporting our farm worker community a priority, including securing $3 million for the Stone Pine Cover manufactured housing community and $1.8 million for the affordable housing development at 555 Kelly Avenue. I'm also proud to have secured $2 million for the bike lanes on Highway 1 and $1 million for the East Side Parallel Trail to improve safety and connectivity for bicyclists and pedestrians. So as I conclude my my congressional service, I want to share the following thought with you. There are many people in the community, throughout our communities, that are sad about the outcome of the election. Others are very pleased. But what I want to share with you is the following. The seeds of democracy are planted right there in the chamber where you are holding your meeting this evening. It all starts there. And when we have strong communities, we have a stronger country. So whatever our future holds, whether we are for something or against something, whatever the battles to improve America, to improve the day-to-day lives of the people of our country, America is worth it. America is worth it. So I say to each one of you and to everyone that's in the chamber and maybe listening into this evening's meeting, I thank you. I thank you for placing your trust in me. I've always considered that trust a very sacred one. So I've given it my all, and I wish each one of you Godspeed, and your families, especially during this really holy season and the Thanksgiving season. And I ask God to protect our troops and to continue blessing the community of Half Moon Bay. It's a magnificent place. I always remember this story when my mother was failing. It was really a very cold and rainy Sunday. And I said, Mom, why don't we go out for a ride? She said, well, I said, would you like to go out? And if so, where would you like to go? And she said, I'd like to go to Half Moon Bay. She loved it. And shortly after that, God called her. So Half Moon Bay is in the center of the heart of my family and certainly mine. So I thank you for your partnership. I couldn't have asked for better partners. I've seen the council really stand tall to bring about the changes with the tragedy that took place in Half Moon Bay. And I'm exceedingly proud of you. More than anything else, I'm grateful to you and for you. And thank you for giving me this time this evening. I'll come over and visit. You'll see me. I'm coming home to stay home at the end of the year. And hopefully I'll bring my little baby granddaughter with me so I can show her off to all of you. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well,
No, thank you, Anna. You're an incredibly great resource. You've worked so hard for the Coast Side, and everything you've done, starting with Moon Ridge, the money for 880 Stone Pine, 550 Kelly, you really care about the Coast Side, and we really appreciate that. So I'm grateful to have you in Congress, and I'm going to miss you very much. Thank you.
You're very kind. You're very kind. And I hope you have really marvelous holidays and get some good rest, too. Everyone needs a little bit of a break.
Anna, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. You have been here. You know, you have been here. Your presence is warm. Your presence is true, and you do everything you can to be real and to be honest and to be faithful to what you believe in. So you're a real model for me. Thank you.
Oh, beautiful words.
I'd like to just add to that, Anna. For me, you are a model public servant, that you understand the sacred trust, in the job. You show up, you work hard, you do your homework, you're thoughtful and good-hearted. I mean, just a model public servant for me. And I agree with Harvey, we will miss you very much, and really do hope that you'll come and visit and stay active, on some level.
Absolutely, absolutely, I will. I love the community immensely, and in our district is a very beautiful congressional district. The Coast Side is a place that people come from all over the world to see. You really see the hand of God in the shaping of all of it. It is so special, and I know that it's a place that's in good hands with each one of you. Your jobs are not easy. None of these jobs are easy, but they are. It's such a privilege. It's such a privilege to be able to roll our sleeves up together to get good things done, and it's that wonderful, gratifying feeling when the job gets done. And it's what people are looking for, and they deserve the best from us. And it's all a blessing. It really is. So I'm sure you have a heavy agenda. I don't want to, take up more time than I should with you. But I did want to, to call in to express my own special heartfelt thanks for your work, for your support, for your partnership. It has really been an amazing journey.
We love you.
thank you.
I love all of you. Bless each one of you.
Thank you. I want to say a few things, before we continue. 2017, I received a letter from Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, and I didn't know who she was. I read the letter. In this letter, she acknowledges the work that I've done for the community, the work that I was doing back in 2017. And that letter was an inspiration for me to do what I'm doing today. I know back in 2014, I decided that one day I was going to run for city council in Half Moon Bay. But the letter that you sent to me, it was an inspiration, and I had to research about you. I had to read about you, and I read about you, and I was very impressed, and I'm continuing to be impressed for everything you do for the coast. You champion Moon Ridge, pretty much. You are the backbone of Moon Ridge. Farm worker housing. You went through a lot to be able to have Moonridge and Half Moon Bay. And I don't know how many people know about this, but we have to recognize you for that. We, the city of Half Moon Bay, we are very grateful with all your support, your advocacy for the community. The tragedy from last year, the shooting, you were present. You were here every day that we needed you. The community saw you. You were here to give support to the farm workers, to their families. For that, Half Moon Bay will always recognize you as a superhero, as some people say. And you are a hero to us, and hopefully, we continue to make you proud of the work that we do here in the city of Half Moon Bay. And with that, we would like to recognize you, to give you a recognition, for all the service that you brought to the community, for your service in Congress, and your dedication to the co-side, and it's an honor. It's an honor to have, met you. It's an honor to see you present. It's an honor to have you in our community. And looking forward, to seeing you here, to visit. I would like to see you again, visiting Half Moon Bay.
Absolutely.
Bring your grandchild. Hopefully by then we'll have my own grandchild too. As you know, it's on its way, so they can meet each other. So it is an honor for us, City of Half Moon Bay, and to recognize you. And we wish you the best of luck, for the next chapters. Be a grandmama, and thank you for everything.
Oh, well, those are beautiful words, Joaquin. They'll always remain with me. Now, all of these beautiful things each one is saying is written on my heart, and I couldn't mean that more. So, have a constructive meeting tonight, and we keep plowing in the public vineyard, and to just make things better and better for people. We're all God's children, and I think that I've always believed this, that when God calls us and we're judged, I think we'll be judged on how well we have cared for each other. It's not all that complicated. So that's the work. That's the work for each one of us. And thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm so touched and moved by what you've chosen to say.
One more thing on a personal note, from my family to you. We are very grateful for the flag that you sent to us after the tragedy with my son. We have that on our living room, together with the certificate, that the flag was flown in Washington, D.C. And we are greatly appreciated and forever be grateful with you.
In memory of your beautiful son. Yep. Well, he's in heaven. It's the rest of us to try and get there.
Yes, he is. I don't know if I'm gonna make it there, but I will try.
We all have to keep trying. We all have to keep trying. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I couldn't mean it more. I'm not going to say goodbye. I'm going to say I'll see you.
Okay, we'll see you. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Blessings, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bienvenidos, welcome to the Half Moon Bay City Council meeting, December 3rd, 2024. May I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Brownstone?
Here.
Councilmember Penrose? Here. Councilmember Reddick?
Here.
Vice Mayor Rohrbach?
Here.
Mayor Jimenez?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. May we stand for the pledge? Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
Everybody in favor?
I'd like to pull a couple of items.
This is,
That's
we're not to the consent. This is
Oh, right. Sorry. So move.
Everybody in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Mayor's announcements. Don't forget that we have Night of Lights Parade? Night of Lights Parade this Friday. Don't forget, it's been fun. We have been doing this event for over 20 years. Because I remember my daughter was a baby when we started when we had the first parade. She's 22 now, so it's been over 20 years because I was carrying her on that day. Don't forget, I believe it starts at 6 to 9, Night of Lights Parade, downtown Half Moon Bay, Main Street. Thank you. Also would like to share with you that today we had a visit here in Half Moon Bay, and actually the coastside, from different foundations of the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, ZZI Foundation, Santa Cruz Foundation, San Francisco Foundation, Sobrado Foundation, and they came to visit our organizations, our core agencies, and organizations here of the coast, or nonprofits. They visited Coast I Hope, they visited Alas, and also they visited Puente in Pescadero. They are very interested in continuing to work with us and funding different activities, different programs that the community organizations offer to the coastside. Thank you. We have any reports from closed session?
Thank you, Mayor, Council, Community. The Council did meet in closed session earlier this evening to discuss one item. This was a conference with real property negotiators regarding potential sale of a portion of the 8080 Stone Pine site to the County of San Mateo. Nothing to report out at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. We go city manager updates.
We have a very busy agenda tonight, so we don't have any updates for you. Thanks.
Thank you. Move along. We go to public forum. First, we have Rocio Avila.
Hi, so Rocio is going to provide you with her comment, and then I'm going to go ahead and provide you with the side translation afterwards.
Buenas noches, miembros del concilio y personas presentes. Mi nombre es Rocio Ávila y gracias una vez más por darme la oportunidad de hablar hoy aquí. Quiero agradecer a la excongresista Ana Ishu porque yo tuve la dicha también de conocerla y eso no tengo escrito, pero compartir con ella también algunas necesidades de la comunidad. Y ella dijo que ella impulsó, como dijo el alcalde Joaquín, el lugar de Monridge para que los campesinos pudieran vivir ahí. Ella luchó por unas personas para que ellas pudieran vivir. Ahora nosotros tenemos que luchar para que otras personas tengan una vivienda más. Y también quiero agradecer por todo lo que hizo por los trabajadores agrícolas. Se lo agradecemos de todo corazón y que Dios la bendiga siempre. Quiero agradecer también al alcalde Joaquín y al vicealcalde Harvey por todo el trabajo que han realizado todo este tiempo. Todavía no terminan, pero quiero agradecerles. En su periodo de trabajo en la mesa del concilio, por unirse en la lucha continua que hemos tenido sobre la vivienda y problemas con la renta en Half Moon Bay. Gracias por siempre apoyar a la comunidad que ha estado callada por mucho tiempo, por escucharnos y darnos la oportunidad de compartir con ustedes y con todos los demás miembros la gran necesidad que tenemos de tener un lugar digno donde vivir. Nuestra lucha continúa y no pararemos hasta que seamos escuchados. Gracias nuevamente por todo su esfuerzo que han realizado para que Half Moon Bay y la costa sea un lugar hermoso e inclusivo para todos.
Good evening, members of the council and all people present. My name is Rocio Avila, and I first want to start off by saying, and this is not in the script, by saying thank you to Ann Eshu. And, you know, she has been sharing many things with us in the community. And like Joaquin said earlier about Moonridge, she fought for people so that they can have a place to live. And now we must carry on that fight for others in regards to housing. So thank you very much. I want to say that from the bottom of my heart, and God bless you. I also want to say thank you to Harvey Rarbeck and the mayor. I'm not done yet, so I'll just continue. Once again, thank you for all the work that you've done and have done in this time with everything that you do every day in this council. To continue to join us in the continuous fight that we've had for housing and rent control problems in Half Moon Bay. Thank you for always supporting the community that has been kind of quiet for a long time, but for listening to us and giving us the opportunity to share with all of you and all of the members the great need that we have and to have dignified housing and a place to live. Our fight continues, and we will not stop until we're all heard. Thank you once again for all of the work that you do and all of the effort you put into it in realizing and brought forth what goes on in Half Moon Bay and on the coast, that to make it such a beautiful place and inclusive for all.
Muchas gracias, Rocío. Thank you. We have Evelyn de Souza.
Good evening, Mayor Jimenez, Vice Mayor Rabeck, council members Radek, Harvey, and Penrose. I just wanted to say tonight, I'm here to also with a message of gratitude. Today, Sheriff Chichoff kicked off a public awareness campaign around pedestrian safety on our street. And this is a wonderful campaign. We have a lot of elderly people. We've just had the sidewalks installed on Poplar Street, and it's a wonderful thing to be able to see people who are elderly, disabled, or otherwise challenged to be able to walk safely on the street. So again, this is a message of gratitude, and I'm a little bit sad that Sheriff Chichoff is not here to hear this, but we are very grateful to him for running this campaign. Thank you.
Thank you. We went to the consent calendar.
Oh, we have a Zoom speaker.
Oh, Zoom,
Mayor.
we do.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Dan Haggerty.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello? Okay, great. Dan Haggerty, El Granada, on the Mid-Coast Community Council, but tonight I'm speaking just for myself. So I wanted to say, thank you to Anna Eshu. I also wanted to say thank you to the outgoing council members. Thank you for your service very much. But mainly, I wanted to talk about the Frenchman's Creek light backup. I think the major backup is normally going northbound, but also southbound. It's my belief that with some minor, easy adjustments to the timing of the light controller, that the light needs to be green for Highway 1 more often. I've noticed that if there's a car coming out of Frenchman's Creek, gives a signal to the road sensor, tells the controller, hey, there's a car waiting, wants to make a left turn. That car has to wait approximately 45 seconds. You know, good thing is that, you know, as soon as the bumper's through the intersection, the last car goes green for Highway 1 again. You know, the frequency of that, you know, causes a red light for Highway 1, and, you know, it all adds up. In addition, the pedestrians crossing, a lot of times there's bikes. Every time the pedestrian signal is pressed, it's set for 30 seconds. So bikes will cross sometimes at 5 seconds, making the remainder of the highway red for 25 seconds unnecessarily. Pedestrians, I often see they cross in 15 seconds, and so there's another 15 seconds if the light is red unnecessarily. You know, these can be adjusted easily with a program on the controller. You know, even if it was only during the most congestive hours of the day. You know, and if there was adjustments made, the people that live in Frenchman's Creek would be able to get home after work, you know, with easy adjustments to the sliding control. As far as the pedestrians and the cyclists, I wanted to say, you know, everybody I think knows I've been an advocate for underpasses. I want to say that the city of Boulder, Colorado has more than 80 currently operating underpasses. The city of Davis, California has 21. And just north in Pacifica, there's 4 underpasses that work. I also want to say that during the county's proposal of a light at Graywell Cove, there was a petition drive that I was part of. We got 1,000 signatures that preferred an underpass there versus a traffic signal. Many in the community helped a lot with the effort. You know, if there was an underpass at Frenchman's Creek someday, you know, that would take the crossings out of the equation.
Dan.
And I think that it would be very easy. I think that at least there should be some exploration, feasibility study.
Dan, can you hear me?
Ideas. Yes.
Can you complete your statement, please?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think that some of these, of course, the underpass would be a major thing, but just simple adjustments to the lighting timing would be very simple, very easy, and it would help the overall flow of people getting home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, well, thank you. Move on to the consent calendar. Would anybody like to put any of the items on the consent calendar?
Yeah, 1C and 1E.
1C, 1E. May I have a motion to approve the rest of the items on the consent calendar?
I move that we approve the consent calendar. Item 1A, waive reading of resolutions and ordinances. Item 1B, San Mateo County Mosquito and Vector Control District Board of Trustees appointment. Item 1D, AB 1600 report on development impact fees for fiscal year ended June 30, 2024. And that's it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. Like to open up 1C?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
If I might suggest, I know our typical order is we take those items pulled off at the beginning of the regular resolutions and staff reports. Item 3B has a consultant that's here. Could I suggest that we take those 2 items after 3B? Would that be okay?
Yes, please, go ahead. So we're gonna go on to item 3B, under the resolutions and staff reports?
3A.
We actually need to do 2A. There's still an action we need to take to.
2A.
Yeah.
Oh, so we are,
There is no 2A. Oh, yes, there is.
oh, 2A.
2A, yeah.
So we're gonna do 2A.
Yeah, quickly, that's,
Let's do 2A, please.
Moving to continue item 2A. Is it a date certain? Do we have a date or? No.
Yes, we're going to continue it to December 16th, which is the special meeting, the final meeting of this calendar year.
Okay, move to continue item 2A until December 16th.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then I think let's do 3A and 3B, and then we can go to the other items, if that's okay.
Yes. We move on to resolutions and staff reports, 3A.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Okoye Wilson. I'm the Associate Planner with the City of Half Moon Bay, and tonight I will be presenting to you about item 3A, which is objective design standards, and staff is here to provide you a briefing, status update, and seek some direction from the council tonight. So the purpose and the reason that we're here tonight is recent state legislation will be expanding the applicability of SB 35 into the coastal zone, which includes the city of Half Moon Bay, under SB 423. And so this will be effective January 1st, and I will explain what these numbers and these bills are further, but I just want to provide a general overview first. So under SB 423, once this becomes effective, there will be no discretionary review for qualifying projects under these parameters. So that means no AAC, Planning Commission, or City Council discretion on the approval of these projects. They would, or any determination made on projects, they would be all ministerial. And those determinations then must be based solely on objective standards, and that's what we're looking to develop, objective design standards, which could be applied to these projects. The objective design standards will allow the city to implement standards that must be applied to qualify for the ministerial review. A project could still choose to not go through these or meet all of these objective standards, but in that case, they would then have to go through a typical review process, including discretionary review and public hearings. But without these adopted objective design standards, we have no discretion, and we can't apply any sort of objective policy or objective standards that we currently have in place. And currently, what we have objectively that applies to these types of projects is very minimal. So objective design standards are a broad set of definable standards that can be used and applied to new development. This means that you can very clearly know how these standards are defined. They must include statements such as shall or specific numbers. You can't necessarily just say minimize or use terms like that. It has to be more specific and definable. So to qualify for that ministerial review, as I mentioned, these projects would have to meet all of the objective standards that we then have in place at that time, but currently that is minimal. And this means that our existing development standards still apply, so that's going to be like lot coverage, floor area, height, those kinds of things that we have in place within our zoning code will still apply. But in terms of architectural review, that's where we're looking to develop those standards, because that's very, we have single-family residential design guidelines, but we do not have design guidelines or objective design guidelines that would apply to multifamily, which is what we're looking at here. And I'll explain that further in a second. So SB 35 requires streamlined ministerial approval for jurisdictions that have not been making sufficient progress towards their regional housing needs allocation. So that does include the city of Half Moon Bay. So then under SB 423, which is what's going to expand that into Half Moon Bay, projects meeting a 10% affordability requirement that are multifamily in qualifying areas as well. So there's certain site-specific criteria as well that will need to be met, but those projects could apply for ministerial review, and only objective standards would then apply to any determinations on that project. Additional state legislation that we're looking at includes SB 2011 and AB 2011 and SB 6, and those also apply to underutilized commercial sites. We're mostly looking at SB 423, but these standards could still apply to projects coming in under this state legislation as well. And we'll be holding a future meeting that will address all of this policy and provide a study session at the next upcoming Planning Commission meeting to provide more clarity on this state legislation, as I know there's a lot of it that is coming and applying, so we want to try to provide some more clarity in the near future. Right now, back on the topic of the objective design standards, a current status update that we have begun the process of developing these objective design standards. So far we've gone through meetings with the Architectural Advisory Committee. This included a walking tour to some of our existing multifamily sites, and those that included the public as well as our full AAC and a member of the Planning Commission who is also part of our ad hoc subcommittee. So as part of this process, we've also formed an ad hoc subcommittee that consists of 2 planning commissioners and 1 AAC member. And this has allowed us to work with that subcommittee to further develop these standards and get that feedback outside of our regularly scheduled meetings. Most recently, we had a study session with our Architectural Advisory Committee and our Planning Commission and received some helpful feedback from them that is allowing us to update our current set of preliminary draft objective design standards based on that feedback that they provided. So based off that, we're currently doing updates and working on creating more graphics to bring forward to future study sessions. So some of the feedback that we received at that meeting was to create 2 applicable sections of objective design standards, breaking this up into essentially smaller multifamily developments and then larger multifamily developments. So looking at it as 2 and 3 unit developments and then potentially 4 or larger size unit developments. And using our existing single-family residential design guidelines, but creating those to be more objective and updating those to apply to multifamily and trying to incorporate those standards for those smaller projects. And then looking at creating architectural palettes for some of these larger projects. So potentially 3 to 4 architectural styles that might fit into Half Moon Bay or be the preferred architectural styles that we have here, and using those as the objective design standards for these larger projects. So we're still looking into that and continuing to gather feedback on that, but that's what we heard from them, and we're trying to incorporate. We also heard that there was a need for more graphics, so we're continuing to work on that, and we will be returning with an updated draft in the near future. Additionally, we've met with our ad hoc subcommittee on a couple occasions, and they've provided similar feedback to our Architectural Advisory Committee and the Planning Commission, and have continued to provide that emphasis on using some of our existing design guidelines and making those objective, as well as looking into providing some specific standards for gateways or transition areas within the city to help with some of the potential massing or view corridors. So we plan to continue to work on them, especially in the near future, to continue to define some of those architectural palettes we mentioned, and then working with them on revising the draft standards as needed. So SB 423, it applies to multifamily, as I've mentioned, as well as mixed use. But it cannot be within the categories listed above. This, generally speaking, includes areas that are mapped prime agricultural lands, areas subject to greater than 5 feet of sea level rise, and then the Coastal Commission appeals jurisdiction. Here you can see a map, and this is going to show you the majority of areas that would be within the qualifying criteria for SB 423. So these are the areas that are zoned residential, allow for multifamily use, might be high residential density allowed there, and then some commercial residential or commercial general as well is mixed in here. So these are all the areas that we could see these projects coming in under, but there could be some others, such as some of the workforce housing overlay sites that are mentioned within our land use plan but are not currently mapped. So this is what we have for now. So tonight we'd like to get some feedback from the council on how we continue to move forward with developing these objective design standards. So we know we need to continue to work to develop them, and so far staff has been working to develop them at a relatively quick pace. We're trying to get them in place as close to January 1st as we could, but at the same time, we want to ensure that that's the track that the City Council wants us to continue to move along. So some of the options that we have is option 1, which is what we've essentially been working under right now, moving at a pretty quick pace, trying to get these developed and ideally adopted as soon as possible. But option 2, very similarly, would be on the same track, would work within our existing budget, but we would consider including additional outreach and study sessions and other review periods. The main difference here is it would take a longer time to have that adoption, which means a longer period of time before we have these standards in place, so projects could come in the meantime under the existing standards, which are quite minimal. Option 3 is a much more comprehensive review. It would involve not just minor amendments to our code, but looking at beyond the objective design standards that we're discussing tonight, but also updating our land use plan to include the objective standards for our existing policy. This is encouraged by the California Coastal Commission. However, it will be a much longer process, so it could come as, and would require additional budget, so it could come as a phase 2 essentially, or something along those lines, but something we wanted to bring to your attention that this would be potentially coming in the near future. So as I just mentioned, option 1 and 2 are very similar. Option 2 allows us to move forward as quickly as we have been trying to, while option 2 allows us to continue to move forward, but to take that step back and try to have some additional study sessions and allow for more feedback periods. Like I mentioned, option 3 is a much larger scope, would involve more comprehensive updates, but would be needed in the future. Next steps, we're looking to have our next Architectural Advisory Committee study session on December 12th, and then having an upcoming Planning Commission study session as well in the near future. We'd also like to hear if the City Council would like to have an independent study session. This was initially within the plan, but it would have probably been along the lines of tonight, but with the timeline and some changes that we wanted to make sure we brought forward well put together draft standards, and we didn't think they were quite there yet. But we wanted to hear if that's still something that City Council wants to have, if you want to incorporate that additional time to have an independent study session versus relying just on the AAC and the Planning Commission's study sessions or feedback. So that's just another idea of an option and feedback staff would like to hear from you tonight. Eventually, based on the timelines that we indicate tonight, we would be looking at public hearings, and so going back beyond study sessions to public hearings with the Planning Commission as well as the City Council, and ultimately California Coastal Commission certification would be required. So as I mentioned, we're looking for a bit of direction tonight regarding the pace that you'd like to see us continue to move with the development of these standards, or identify any other potential option you'd like to see explored. And then again, the feedback on having an independent study session with the City Council and any additional feedback that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a few questions.
Yeah, you said something about 10% affordability. I have no idea what you were talking about.
So under SB 423, there's different requirements based on the jurisdiction and their current progress with their regional housing needs allocation numbers, as well as their housing element, getting that adopted. So based on that, there's a list that's been put out there by HCD, and they have determined the affordability requirements that would qualify under these ministerial review projects. So that's that 10%. So if a project had 10% affordability.
I don't know what that means.
So if 10% of the units, so if we had a 20-unit building, 10% of that being
Two of the units would have to be
affordable to, I believe it's low or moderate based on HCD's determination for Half Moon Bay. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that. In second option 2, you talk about doing more outreach. What do you mean by outreach?
Just additional public meetings, additional study sessions that allow for the public to also come and comment on that as they're seeing the draft design standards along with whoever's the reviewing body is at the time, but just factoring in more of those study sessions that would allow for the public to have more opportunity to see and provide their feedback as well.
If we went with option 2, then would that absolutely end all further discussion? On this item, we couldn't go back and look at things again?
So under any option, there will be opportunity to come back and revise these objective design standards that we establish at a future date. Of course, what we establish now, so that's part of why we've been working on a quick timeline, is we're trying to get something established now, so something is in place in case a project were to come in under this new state legislation. But there would still be opportunity to revise it, but we would still have to go through the required process to do so.
Got it. So we'd have to go through HCD, and we'd have to go through the Coastal Commission, or?
We would have to go through our typical city jurisdiction, or public hearings, and then Coastal Commission, potentially, based on the revisions.
Okay, thank you. And then in terms of city council meeting study session, would it be possible to have city council present at the ARC and Planning Commission meeting? Like a joint meeting for all three of us, rather than just limit it to ARC and Planning?
Yeah, I think staff could look into that option, and if we can find a date to do something like that, that could definitely be an option.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any more clarifying questions?
I have a question now, comments later, but,
Okay.
so you mentioned 10%. How will that interact with our current inclusionary housing ordinance? Does this basically replace our inclusionary housing ordinance? How do the two interact, if at all?
I might defer if council can help with that.
I guess I would say there's some overlap, but they would apply independently. So our inclusionary housing ordinance would require a certain amount of below market rate units. What this potential ordinance would do would be to adopt objective design standards for projects that have X amount of affordable housing and meet the other criteria, such as they are not in the Coastal Commission appeals jurisdiction. My guess is there would be a lot of overlap. So projects that need to provide inclusionary units very well may qualify for this type of more streamlined approval, such that we want to have these objective design standards in place to allow the city to process them in a way that, fits with the desires of the community.
And just one follow-up. Thank you for that. So on the map, it wasn't clear to me, are the various shopping centers included as subject to 423? And I'm guessing the other ones that you mentioned too, AB, what was it, 1106 or something like that?
We would have to verify with AB 2011 and SB 6, but at least under SB 423, I think, are you referring to like Strawflower?
Strawflower, next to Carter Park, and then the new Leaf Shopping Center. And also, there's the little strip shopping center over by the hardware store.
Yeah, so it looks like, based on the map, that Strawflower is not included in this, but small portions of the other shopping areas may be included in qualifying under this.
And why would the Safeway be excluded? Is it because it's west of Highway 1, or?
I would have to verify the exact factor that is eliminating it. So the map you're seeing is based on all of our existing maps that we have, and then it basically pulls out anything that does not meet the criteria that it would fall under. So if there's prime agricultural soils mapped, then those sites are then taken off of this map. So I'm not sure which specific factor is doing that, but it's one of those.
Okay, great, thanks.
One more question. The Podesta property, part of that is in the map, the majority of it is not. Can you tell me why?
Yeah, so the Podesta property, I did look into this, and it is, the majority of the property is mapped prime agricultural soils. And so that's what's excluding that larger portion of the property based on our existing mapping. Maps can change over time. The Coastal Commission has encouraged that with our SB 423 maps that are made, we continue to regularly update them based on updated mapping. But as it stands with our existing mapping, most of that property is mapped prime agricultural.
Thank you. We have comments. We have somebody on Zoom.
Zoom user?
Hello, good evening. This is Rick Hernandez. I'm a planning commissioner, and I'm on the subcommittee for objective design criteria with Dave Horn and Linda Poncini. I'm speaking on my own behalf. First of all, thank you all for your service to the city. I will tell you that based on what we've been doing over the last couple of months and what you've heard tonight, we don't have concrete answers to all of the questions you and other members of the community are asking, nor do we have a clear understanding of how this could potentially apply with other laws, including superdensity bonus law. That said, I fully support city staff to develop objective design criteria with option 1 and subsequently pursue option 3, which the Coastal Commission supports for longer term planning. Putting objective criteria in place is urgent and really does require immediate action. Now, even if we do this, we will have a gap from January 1st when the law goes into effect and when we do put the objective design criteria in place, which in the best case scenario is sometime in February or March. As I understand it, anybody who announces their intention to build during this gap will have at least a 6-month window to submit a project and could therefore ignore the character, size, and scale of previous development in Half Moon Bay, and also ignore any objective design criteria that weren't in place when they announced their intent to develop. For example, if you look at the Purple House on the corner of Johnson and Kelly Street, that owner could elect to knock down their house and put up a 3-story, 10-unit luxury apartment complex with 1 unit of affordable housing for a family with a median income of $97,000. That's just for 1 unit. In that scenario, we might be powerless to provide any feedback on height or design. Now, we can quibble about the details, but under current zoning in that district, the new state law for that site would get ministerial approval. Another example would be the old Seacrest School building behind Pasta Moon on Monte Vista Lane and across the street from the new urgent care facility. You could realistically put in a 3 to 6 story building there with 16 units of housing, and only one would be affordable for a family making $157,000 a year and another for a $98,000 family income. These would qualify under new state law and our other housing laws that we have in place. I fully support building more affordable and mixed income housing in town. However, we have effectively no objective design criteria. I would, in addition to option 1 now, I would recommend directing city staff to work with the Planning Commission to do what we can to put in place an interim set of objective standards before the end of the year, in addition to option 1. We can always update these over time, as Akoi's just said. It doesn't mean somebody can't come forward with a project that doesn't meet the interim design criteria. It just means they would have to go through the current AAC and Planning Commission process that we already have in place. You all know I can get into the weeds on stuff. It's not my intention tonight. Please just give us clear direction on what you want to do, and hopefully we can work out some of these details before we get to the end of the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments, and we'll make a
Can you put up the 3 options again, please, that slide?
Is this the preferred slide?
Yeah. Well, I think we've already actually faced some issues where we did not make the changes to our zoning laws, right? To help us, zoning laws that are recommended under LUP, et cetera, but we haven't implemented, and that's been kind of hanging over our heads for a while. And I think there's already been some planning commission decisions that got a little bit clouded because of that lack of specificity. So I think we should definitely not do anything that's going to last longer than option 2, because all along this process, one, staff could be checking in with Coastal Commission to see if they're on the right track. And if at some point it's determined that maybe there does need to be an amendment to the LUP, we could probably start sorting that out early rather than going through a whole year's worth of process by checking in with the Coastal Commission. I really like Council Members Penrose's idea of having a joint study sessions, because actually I think by having the Architecture Committee, Planning Commission, Council members in the same room actually allows for a lot of cross, education with the expertise in the room. So again, you don't have to create delays later on if you have all the right folks who have different things to add. So I liked where Rick Hernandez was going with this. The time is of the essence, and there will always be people waiting, potential people in the wings to do exactly what he said, knowing things can change. So, so those are my thoughts. I'd be happy to go with option 1. If folks think it needs a little more detail into option 2, that's fine, but either one of those would work for me.
Boys.
Should I talk?
Yes, go ahead.
What Rick Hernandez just said scared the hell out of me. I don't know about the rest of the council. And if that is a possibility that some developer is going to come in January and just get ministerial approval to build a 3 or 6 story building, as I said, that's really worrisome. If we could, in fact, get some emergency objective standards so that SB 423 would not apply quite as easily as we could not have ministerial approval of these projects. So I understand it's at a late moment, and it's December 3rd, and the end of the year is coming up, but if it's a possibility that developers could come in and just willy-nilly essentially do whatever the hell they wanted, I think we should get these emergency standards in place to prevent that. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Could you put up the slide of purposes, showing the purposes of this? It was one of the early slides. So you look at the second bullet, there's no discretionary review for qualifying SB 423 projects. That's pretty scary in and of itself. And then what's really scary is this gap that begins January 1 until we actually have design standards. So I share Rick's concern, and also it sounds like Robert and Harvey both, that we could, face ourselves with multiple letters of intent. I know that the property owner of that was going to be the expanded mobile home park on 92 has pulled that application. We know that another property owner has expressed interest in the old Seacrest School property. These are savvy developers with lawyers who understand, and I think waiting until February is not really a good idea. So I would support directing staff to work with the Planning Commission on some, basic interim standards that would help us early on, because we could face a real onslaught, I think. People have been following the laws, and I know we have densified downtown, our new land use plan, and we expect some of that, but what we don't expect is basically having no discretion over the scale of these properties. So I would be, I think if we did the interim design standards, we might be able to stretch out and look at option 2 instead of option 1. I'm in favor of either 1 or 2, but I'm really in favor of developing interim standards between now and January 1, and meeting if we have to. I like Deborah's idea of all of us meeting together so we can get a common picture of the issues. But I think we need to move even faster than staff has been moving, and I thank you for moving fast. But I think we need to move even faster, would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I'm not sure why we go from 2 to 3 months to 3 to 6 months when we're talking about additional study sessions. There could be one meeting of the 3 entities, and we could do that between now and the end of the year. It could be a special emergency session. I think anybody that really cares about this will attend it. And I like the idea of getting interim temporary standards set in place as quickly as possible. But I also like the idea, of another study session and being able to understand a little bit better what we're talking about when we talk about the different styles and that kind of thing. So I would be in favor of option 1 with a study session. So option 1.5 and interim objectives, design standards.
Thank you. Rick Hernandez, thank you for the good information. I know we are thinking about that very serious. And I think, it's, we do have direction to go with option 1. Do we have enough time for a study session with our community? Do we?
Yeah, as Councilmember Penrose pointed out, we'll probably need to schedule a special meeting to make that happen, but we'll start on that tomorrow.
Sounds good to me. Let's do with option 1. I think we're in favor of doing option 1. Go ahead.
Comment. So just checking back with staff here, we're talking about putting a lot of prioritization resources into this. So if there are things that you need to take some resources off, just let us know. We'll have some warning, but this really should be a priority. So just want to make sure you're comfortable with juggling some of the resources that you might need to.
No, we see the same urgency. So, we'll need to be realistic that even developing interim, temporary, emergency standards, we still have to get them right. They just won't be the perfect long-term standards. But, we'll prioritize this appropriately.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have direction, and we'll work on having a study session. Thank you very much. Move on to item 3B.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. So as you know, the city has had a contract with Townsend Public Affairs for the past 7 years for lobbyist and advocacy efforts around legislative affairs. And so Carly is our representative from Townsend, and she's here to provide an update on this year's legislative session and a look ahead to next year. So thank you, Carly.
Make sure that's on. Yes, thank you all, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, Carly Shelby with Townsend Public Affairs. It's great to be with you all this evening, here to provide an overview of what transpired over the course of the 2024 legislative session. So getting into an overview of our presentation, we'll discuss an overview of the 2024 state legislative session, funding and federal updates, anticipated issues for 2025, and an overview of our advocacy program. So as a quick snapshot of the 2024 session, there were 2,142 bills introduced, of which 1,017 bills were signed and 189 bills were vetoed, comprising an 18% veto rate. This is pretty typical for the legislature. Members tend to introduce anywhere from 40 to 50 bills over the 2-year session span, so 2,000 plus bills is pretty expected. The governor tended to veto bills that had a high cost for implementation. Last year was a tough budget year with a massive deficit, so he had to make some tough calls on bills. Getting into some of the key bills that we engaged on this year, these all deal with land use policies within the coastal zone, and we submitted support, opposition, and comment testimony to shape their outcomes. This included AB 2560 by Assemblymember Alvarez, which would streamline the application of density bonus law within the coastal zone, and it would have required local coastal plans or LCPs be updated for consistency with state housing laws. An expensive and very onerous process. So we opposed this bill and it ultimately did not move forward. Additionally, we provided thoughtful comments and amendments to Senate Bill 951 by Senator Wiener, which clarifies that the Coastal Commission cannot appeal a project based solely on its use if it's included within an LCP. Again, this would require that LCPs be updated with greater frequency. Some of our comments and considerations were taken into the final drafting of the bill, and it was signed into law. And then finally, we supported Senate Bill 1077, which tasks HCD with preparing guidance to facilitate ADU production within the coastal zone. We supported this, and it was signed into law. Moving on to some of the statewide bonds that we supported throughout the legislative session, we have AB 1657 by Assemblymember Garcia. This authorizes $10 billion in bonds for climate-related projects. This includes sea level rise, coastal protection, open space and parks, et cetera. We had a support position. This was ultimately consolidated into an alternate bill vehicle and was passed by voters under Prop 4 on the November ballot. And then we had the housing bond, AB 1657 by Assemblymember Wicks. This authorizes $10 billion in bonds for housing-related projects, including multifamily housing program, farm worker housing, and CalHome. We supported this. It did not ultimately move forward. However, we're hearing that this is something that could move forward in 2025, so we will want to be active on that when it comes forward. And then on labor and employee relations, this was a measure that we opposed. AB 2489 by Assemblymember Ward would have made it really difficult for local agencies to contact with temporary employees. It would have required that private contractors of local public agencies at least meet some of the same qualifications and standards required for civil service employees who perform the same job functions. We opposed this. We submitted some thoughtful comments, and it did not move forward. And then looking at the ballot from this most recent election, there are 2 outcomes I want to highlight here. The first is the passage of $20 billion in statewide bonds. We thought that voters were a bit disaffected after the very narrow margins by which Prop 1 passed. This included Prop 4, which I discussed previously. This will push out $10 billion in funds that the city would be eligible to apply for, so we could see those funds be trickling out through state budgets over the next couple years. And then the other is the passage of Prop 36, which I'm sure you guys all know makes major changes to Proposition 47 and passed by a nearly 70% vote margin, which is the highest approval rate of any measure on the ballot this year. And then getting into the state budget. This year, we observed a major deficit due to a low rate of returns from high income earners due to the state's progressive tax structure and the retraction of our federal funding that was really hit a high point during the pandemic. This led to spending cuts, delays, deferrals, but the legislature was ultimately able to protect a lot of local government funding pots, such as homelessness, housing, planning and transportation funds. Member requests were not included, but we are optimistic for opportunities next year. And then looking ahead to 2025, the Legislative Analyst Office recently released its fiscal outlook report for the upcoming year and predicted a significantly smaller deficit of around $2 billion compared to the $38+ billion last year, following with years of double-digit deficits due to our spending outpacing our revenue growth at present. They caution fiscal prudence. However, this could mean additional opportunities for the city as we look into 2025. And then getting into what we're looking ahead for, we have a massive freshman class of legislators constituting about 25% turnover. Yesterday was actually the swearing-in ceremony for many of them, and I got to meet with a lot of them last night at all of their fun receptions. This means new leadership, ideas, and dynamics in Sacramento. And then as stated, the budget will continue to evolve and impact our policy strategies. There will be a major focus on California and DC dynamics with the new administration moving forward. This will include dedicated budget resources to litigation efforts, and then obviously the introduction of bills to kind of preempt whatever may be coming our way. Fire insurance affordability and availability as we wrap up these fire insurance regulations is definitely going to be top of mind for many legislators. And then coastal land use. Last year we saw a lot of bills kind of fall flat that were seeking to kind of remedy those discrepancies between the Coastal Commission and HCD on who has ultimate authority. So we could see some of those proposals moving forward. And then cap and trade investments. Cap and trade is a system where major polluters buy and sell credits to emit pollution via these allowances. That constitutes about $4 billion of not necessarily discretionary funds, but funds that are used for housing, transportation, clean energy projects. We're hearing that cap and trade reauthorization or extension will happen sometime next year, which could mean that we're opening the hood and viewing how we're spending a lot of those funds. On federal updates, Representative Eshu called in earlier. That was a wonderful phone call. She's an incredible member. We submitted a request for community project funding through her office that was ultimately chosen and put forward in the Appropriations Committee markup package, totaling $850,000 for the East Side Parallel Trail. It's there. We've almost made it to the end. It just requires one final vote from Congress, unless there's some kind of unprecedented change to reconfigure things altogether. Congress will not likely pass this appropriations package by the December 20th deadline. Instead, we think they will opt to issue a continuing resolution to kick this process back into March. But it's very similar to what we observed this year when things kind of wrapped up in April. And then changing federal dynamics, of course, we have new majorities, a new administration. The appropriations process will come into March. Earmark process will likely continue, so we'll want to hear projects. There will be a major focus on immigration. And then California called a special session, as I'm sure you guys are all aware, to allocate approximately $25 million of budget resources to the Department of Justice in anticipation of litigation costs. So there will be a lot of headbutting between our state and the federal government over the next few years, as one could imagine. And then for our advocacy program, we conduct check-in meetings with your staff as frequently as we can. We're identifying legislative and budget priorities for 2025. We send over reports and updates on priority issues on a weekly and sometimes monthly basis. If there are updates to the Ledge platform, we want to be helpful with that. Again, there's so many new legislators in both Sacramento and DC, so would love to have you guys down to Sacramento if you guys ever get the opportunity. And then, of course, we will continue with relationship development with our legislative delegation. You guys haven't had any changes. Becker and Berman are wonderful members. But again, there's so many new members and relationships to be developed. And that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We do have a comment.
Dan Haggerty.
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No, I just wanted to make a very short comment that, there's a lot of legislation passed from Sacramento that essentially takes away from local control, people who live here, deciding on policies, so housing policies. So I just wanted to say that I am one that believes that local control should not be usurped by the state. We live here. We will be impacted on these decisions for years to come, and I just basically saying that I have concerns with outsiders making decisions on the future of the community that I live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Any comments or questions from council?
I just want to point out that State Coastal Conservancy is in the bond for $900 million, which is the biggest amount that agency has ever gotten from any of the Parks and Resources bonds. And I think there's going to be high demand for it, especially, coastal resilience and wildfire and things like that. So we might want to put our heads together at the beginning of the year about, potential projects. They're moving. They actually gave the RCD a grant to help with the replacement pipeline in Montera because there were habitat issues around that. So they seem to be wanting to move into utilities that are related somehow to coastal resilience. So we want to explore that, but we want our piece of the action, basically, is what I'm saying. And so there's that. I don't know if you saw it, but there was an editorial in the San Francisco Chronicle on Sunday by somebody calling for the Assembly Speaker and the Senate President Pro Tem and the Governor to stop the infighting and work together and improve their relationships with local governments by maybe not focusing too much on these punitive housing laws. So, maybe we'll see some of that. I doubt it, but I just want to say thank you to Townsend. You guys have been great, and I look forward to keeping our relationship going. Getting to Sacramento, maybe. Yeah.
Thank you. Any more comments? Nope, no more comments. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Thanks. Safe trip.
We're going to take a short break before we go to item 3C.
Probably a good idea.
Break. Break for 10. Welcome back. We're going to go out to item 1C on the consent calendar.
So we'll give Scott a moment to get oriented. Do we have a presentation or no? Okay. So 1C is the annual Measure D unit allocation. This is something we do every single year, and it is the process by which we determine the number of allocations of Measure D, which is our growth control ordinance, for the next calendar year. Scott Phillips, our senior planner, has been working on this for many, many years and put together the report. And I believe this was pulled because we got some questions from the community. So how would you like us to proceed? Do you want us to address those questions?
Yeah, I've been approached by a couple different people on this issue. I saw Julie McHenry's letter today, then just ran into somebody who had a conversation about it with me. And I must admit, I'm unclear as to why we couldn't proceed according to Julie McHenry's email. In other words, take the residual ones, dish them out to the people who were in line, and then reissue to Stone Pine. So not kill the ones that Stone Pine should have, but to do that juggle among, the bonus, et cetera, so that we can clear some of these Measure D applications this year. People in line, people, treating this, pretty urgently. They just don't get it. And I think if we can find a way to make it okay to do so, I think we ought to, get those out the door this year, and then make sure that Stone Pine gets theirs when they need them through some process. And I'm not sure, I understand all the nuts and bolts about it, but it just makes sense to me. And it would be helpful, I think, with HCD if we can just get more ADUs underway. So, but she had some other questions too about the finances, the financial questions. So if we could answer her questions, I think that would be great. I assume you have the email.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, I'd be happy to provide some clarification. And as Matthew mentioned, I'm Scott Phillips. I work in community development. And I did receive the email from Julie and read through it. And staff has met with her on a number of times to, go over Measure D and, answer the questions that she's had. And the staff report did provide a little bit of clarification that, there is a priority for downtown, and Measure D allocations must be issued prior to the issuance of discretionary permits, including the coastal development permits. And that's exactly how we treated the project at Stone Pine. And that is exactly how all projects have been treated over the past 10 plus years that I've worked at the city of Half Moon Bay. So I think there was some discussion on, okay, well, if we wait on processing the coastal development permit for Stone Pine and issue Measure D allocations afterwards, that would be inconsistent with what's required in the code and our practice. So, and we certainly want to treat the city to the exact same standard as the rest of our applicants. So that, and like I mentioned, that there is a priority for downtown, and section 1706065 states that priority shall be established for projects located within the boundaries of the downtown area designated for Measure D, which Stone Pine is. So in other words, when we have a project that comes through the door in the downtown, we basically drop whatever we're doing and issue the Measure D allocations for that project. And issue, it's a priority. So, and that was the case with Stone Pine. Now, it was brought to my attention that years ago, the city council did adopt a resolution that prohibits the transfer of downtown allocations if there's a pending application downtown, which there was with Stone Pine. So that's sort of in addition to the, what we have in code. So I hope that's some, and we've met with Julie just to explain, this, the requirements. And I know that there is still some frustration The nice thing is that based off the persons per household that the Census Bureau has provided, we have an additional allocation available for 2025 outside of downtown. So we're hopeful that that will free things up just a little bit to, allow for an additional unit to be issued outside of downtown. Now, there was that question as far as the economic analysis, and that is a question I've had in the past too. Why aren't we taking into consideration the application fees with the economic analysis? And the answer is the economic analysis that's required with Measure D is to analyze city services and the costs associated with city services. The fees that are taken in with the application, the intent is to cover staff time, that there's, so there is no burden on the city for staff time. Now, just as a side note, we are in the process of preparing a nexus study for our fee schedule, which is frankly a separate effort compared to the economic analysis that's included with Measure D. And that is something that will be coming in front of the council in the near future here. And we encourage everyone to take a look at that once we finalize the nexus study for the fee schedule. I'd be happy to clarify anything else with this.
So it sounds like this resolution that was passed seems to be the main obstacle to doing, what we might do. But that's not really an ordinance, is it?
I'd ask if Scott could clarify. I think there are two obstacles. One is that our code requires the Measure D certificates to be issued prior to obtaining or actually applying for a coastal development permit. And so in the case of Stone Pine, obviously there's been an application, there's actually been a CDP that's been issued. So our code requires those Measure Ds to be in place. So that's the first obstacle. I think the second obstacle is a resolution. I haven't seen it, so I can't really speak to it, although I assume that's something the council could change more, readily than the code.
And John Dowdy, our Assistant City Manager, obviously former CDD Director, can speak to this as well.
Sure. And staff's understanding is this: the resolution that was approved by council just reiterated basically what Scott read to you from code, which basically said that when Measure D was approved by the voters, that was written in the context of encouraging development within the downtown and in essence discouraging development outside of that area, and it just inferred and went along with that. Now the challenge now with that resolution, I think we'd all agree that typically a resolution could be removed, it could be rescinded, it could be revised. But that document, that resolution was approved in 2019, just in advance of the city going forward with its local coastal land use plan certification. And so that became also part of the LCLUP certification process, and again sort of confirmed and affirmed in that context, that same process, which is you focus everything in downtown when you can, and then you go to allocating outside of that area. There's still a question, and we're going to certainly be coming back and looking at the LCLUP as it relates to all of these housing, many of these housing element issues and things that we're dealing with. So there's a chance to come back and revisit that, but that is sort of the layering, compounding issue that we find with the resolution that you normally could just remove, that we don't believe that you can do that because it's been consolidated in the certified LCLUP.
You're saying that we have no flexibility here to...
Because it was in a package that's part of the certified LCLUP, we don't believe we have flexibility in this matter.
Would you concur, council?
Based on the language that I've seen, yes. Not only our LCP, but also in the Muni Code is part of our LCP. So I don't see any flexibility there without a code amendment and a certification. And then, John, I haven't researched the question of whether this is in the Measure D text that the voters approved, or if this is something that the council could change.
I would, by memory, I don't, I believe I'll say this, clearly the intention, the legislative intention was exactly what you're doing and what is in there. There was a lot of text that was added to the ordinance itself, and which has been included in the LCLUP, that was not part of the voter initiative, and I can't recall whether this was a specific provision. I think it was an administrative issue that was added as part of the council's.
I would agree with
bringing
that.
that forward
Yeah.
with that deal.
I move that we adopt a resolution setting the 2025 residential dwelling unit allocation and administration system pursuant to Half Moon Bay Municipal Code, Chapter 1706, for 67 residential dwelling units, 45 units for downtown, that's 23 base, and 22 bonus units, and 22 units outside of the downtown.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Brownstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Penrose?
Yes.
Councilmember Reddick?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Barback?
Yes.
Mayor Jimenez?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 1 is 1D. 1E.
Thank you. Give me one moment. I'm going to just switch seats. It'd be easier just to present from here. Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for considering this tonight. Matthew Chittister, City Manager. Tonight, I'm here to present a request to extend a lease of a private property that has been utilized for public parking in our downtown, which is expiring at the end of this year. So before you is a map. This is at the intersection of Mill Street between Main and Johnston Street. It's the L-shaped parcel in orange. It is directly south of Half Moon Bay Feed and Fuel, kind of southeast, and then is entered one direction from Mill Street and exited on Johnston Street. In 1998, the city began leasing this property. At the time, it was an undeveloped lot, and later on, the city actually did the work to pave it and turned it into a very functional downtown parking lot. There are 30 public spaces. As you know, we don't charge for parking anywhere in our downtown, so they're free with limited hours of use. The last extension of this agreement was in 2019, and something that was really key at that time is when we made the improvements to the property, our very savvy landlord said, if you ever cancel this agreement, you have to go through and remove everything, which was going to be a very expensive endeavor. And so in exchange for our previous extension, we were able to negotiate to have that language removed. So if we were to decide not to move forward with an extension of this lease, we wouldn't have any further obligations beyond the end of this year. Just for a little bit of context, as you know, this sits within our core downtown, historic downtown area. There are hotels, restaurants, and shops nearby. On a busy weekend and summer day, this parking lot is generally very full and, of course, is extensively used during special events. When we did parking studies related to the redevelopment of Carter Park and some additional traffic studies and parking studies more recently, we do find that there's sufficient parking in our downtown for current needs, but that always included the parking spaces in the Mill Street lot. As we know, there's been additional development downtown, including the new College of San Mateo campus, which is only a block and a half away from this parking lot, and the new development at the corner of Main and Kelly across the street from City Hall. And of course, there are other proposed developments downtown that would increase parking demands. So staff is recommending, based on feedback we've gotten from our business community and the need for this parking, to extend the lease for another 5 years. Negotiating with the landlord, she's agreed to just continue the 3% annual cost of living increases. So we'd initially come in this year at $2,362 a month, and it would increase 3% each year during the term. There's been some questions I've received about additional costs because we are responsible for all costs related to the property, including any landscaping, water usage, electricity. We've confirmed with our team we actually don't have any of those services on site. There is minimal landscaping and drought resistant. We've gone to drought resistant on most of our facilities. And we approximate about $160 a month over a year of our maintenance, cleaning, those types of things to keep it in good shape for the community. And one question that's been asked of us is there the possibility of acquiring this parking lot, actually owning it in the future, and maybe looking at development of additional parking, maybe through a garage or something like that? And in my discussions with the landlord, that is something that she'd be open to in the future. So with that, that is staff's recommendation to extend this lease. Again, we have a lot of support from the business community that they believe this is really imperative to maintaining the vitality of our downtown and ensuring that people have the parking they need to frequent the businesses and attend special events. And we're open to your feedback and any questions. Thank you.
Matthew, what about the house that's on that property?
So the house is on a separate property. I can actually go back to the slide. You're referring to the house there, 745? Yeah. That is a separate parcel, owned separately. Certainly long-term future use of this lot, it'd be interesting to see if that could be incorporated into future development or redevelopment of the lot. But we have not engaged in any conversations with anybody about that at this time.
Thank you. For what it's worth, I certainly would advocate in the future a parking garage that would include that area. It's perfect for that location. Thank you.
Yeah, I am not sure that that lot is not being used, at least half of the lot, for employees of downtown businesses. That is not an appropriate use for that lot. Employees for the downtown businesses need to be parking away from the center of downtown. They need to be on San Benito. They need to be, further away.
Just thinking about that, I'm not sure if that's the case, and we can explore that, but certainly looking at the hours, limited hours of parking, is a really easy way to discourage employee parking.
Well, limited hours, who is monitoring that?
That would be monitored by our CSOs from the sheriff's office.
I haven't seen anybody getting a ticket in downtown in I don't know how long.
Our ticket revenues tell us otherwise, so.
Okay, all right, maybe I'm wrong then. The other thing I'm thinking is, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for the city to be paying to be supporting the businesses and not having the businesses chip in. And we asked the businesses in the past if they would chip in, and they refused. They said they don't care enough about it. So if the businesses are unwilling to chip in because they don't care about the parking lot and the availability of parking for their customers, then why should we be picking up the tab? My idea is a parking garage, number one, parking garage, but until we can get a grant to support that, put in metered parking, charge for it to help us recoup some of the cost. And if we can put that to the businesses downtown, say, what do you want to do? Do you want to help chip in, Or do you want to support this program? So that's my thinking on it.
Mr. Mayor, do you mind if I respond to some of that?
Go ahead, please.
Sure. I do want to clarify when the businesses were surveyed in the past, that you're correct, they were not able to support financially. When we met with them, it was never that they weren't interested or they didn't care about the parking. It was that they couldn't afford to help pay for it out of their slim margins, which is a little different, but it wasn't a priority, I think is what you're trying to say. Certainly we can explore a metered program. We'd have to check with the property owner before signing a lease and make sure that she would be open to that. I don't have any reason to think she wouldn't. There would be some initial cost to install a meter. I'm envisioning something similar to what we have at Poplar Beach, the solar-powered electric pay station. So there is an upfront cost to that, and we'd have to, find out what that would be and explore the cost of it. But I do think we've had resistance in the past to metered parking on the street. I think this is a different situation, and so that puts us in a position to explore this further.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a very different situation, and I think recouping some of the cost, and I'm not trying to say that the businesses don't want parking for their customers. They are unwilling to spend the money, is the bottom line. And I know our businesses are not doing great, but it's part of the cost of doing business is to provide parking for your customers. So let's look into it and see.
Great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any more questions? We have somebody in public comment.
Crystalline?
Thank you so much. Apologies I couldn't be there in person. Crystal Lynn from the COSAG Chamber, and I really appreciate that the city continues to work with the landlord of this parking lot, because if my recollection serves, when we were talking about this the last time, the landlord had pretty much stipulated that if the city didn't keep it going as a parking lot, then the city was going to have to pay to put it back to being a dirt lot, and that was going to be really not helpful to both the downtown in looks and just keeping it vibrant. So I think exploring the metering of that lot to help offset the cost is a very smart way to try to figure that out. I do know that the businesses that are directly around it really do rely on it for their customer parking, and if their employees are using it, hopefully it's sparingly, but that can also be something that's worked on. But I do think it's an important piece to the downtown and keeping that relationship with her, so that in the future when she is ready to sell, the city kind of gets first right of refusal for that, for a possible bigger parking structure would be really, really awesome. So even though times are tight, I do think that this one really supports a lot of the things that we're trying to work on in downtown. And fingers crossed, if we get that contract with Visit California, we really might need those extra spaces. So helping us be prepared would be really awesome. So I appreciate you thinking about this and taking the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you said it's a 5-year agreement? Yeah, so we could lock it in now and just talk later.
A question arose as I was listening to Crystalline and some of the comments. Do we want to try to negotiate into this a first right of refusal for an acquisition as part of this?
Absolutely.
Okay. It seems like there's enough interest that we might as well try to lock that in. Okay.
Sounds good. We need a motion.
Well, I'm not ready to move.
They're ready to move?
To sign up for a 5-year lease without considering first rate.
Not to include it in the motion.
Include that and include the parking, also the parking fees.
The parking meter.
paid parking, what do you call it?
I don't think you want that in the negotiation yet. But
For
certainly-
5 years, and if she says, okay, no parking meters for 5 years, she could say that, it's her property.
Well, that's why you don't want to really make that an issue now, I don't think.
Well, that's why I do want to make an issue now, because 5 years from now, I don't want to be asking for parking meters. I want to get the parking meters in there now, or at least I want to explore the option of doing that
Right.
now.
When does this expire?
December 31st.
So could we rewrite it in a way so that it says that we can explore the possibility of parking meters? It doesn't have to be that we will have them, but the city is able to look into the possibility of parking meters?
Yeah, and if feasible, move forward with that under
Yeah.
a separate council action in the future.
And
Yeah.
plus the right of first refusal.
Plus right of first refusal.
Right.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, that's easy direction to receive.
Good.
Okay.
I don't know how to make that motion. Somebody who can,
I think
is better
Robert- I
with
think
words
Robert
than I
was-
am.
Looks
Come on,
like
Robert, you
was
can
already
do it.
thinking about it.
I'll do it. I move that we adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to, actually, you're going to take this back to her, right?
So maybe negotiate.
Authorizing the city manager to negotiate the Sixth Amendment to the lease agreement with Kathy Oler for the use of 730 Mill Street as a public parking lot through December 31, 2029, including discussions of a right of first refusal for acquisition of the parcel and the possibility of paid parking.
Second.
Just one clarification in terms of the motion, the council direction. Is it understood that the staff would bring this back, or is the direction to go ahead and authorize the city manager to execute so long as the meets the parameters of the council direction?
Well, I said authorize to negotiate, but I suppose we could say negotiate and execute. Does that work for everybody?
You'll do the right thing.
Yep.
All right, you need a second, though, I think.
We already had a second.
Oh,
Can I
yes.
get a
Okay.
roll call?
Councilmember Brownstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Penrose?
Yes.
Councilmember Reddick?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rohrbach?
Yes.
Mayor Jimenez?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. We moved on to item 3C.
All right, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council, members of the public. Today, we're going to be presenting the quarter financial report for the quarter ended in September 30th, 2024, which is the first quarter of the fiscal year. So this is going to be a high-level summary, but there's definitely more detail in the agenda packet. Starting with our revenues, as you see on the screen, we have our major revenues. Starting with TOT, we had budgeted $8.6 million. We've received about $860,000 at the end of the first quarter. This is about 10% of budget, which is a little less than last year at the same time. So it's close, but we hope that it would be closer. As you know, TOT has been an uncertainty for us. We've had some down months. In August, we had a little bit of a better month, but so far it's been on a trend we're not exactly thrilled about, but I'll have a slide for you on the next coming up. Property taxes, we've budgeted about 3.8. We've received about $600. This is as expected. Property taxes come in two big payments, and in December and in April. And they come from the county, so we're pretty assured that we will get those funds. Sales and use tax, we budgeted about 3.2 million. We received about 260K. This category is a little bit closer. We're about 8%, so we're at So this is trending as anticipated. It's still a little bit too early to tell, but it's starting off well. Other revenues, we budgeted 5.3. We've received about 975,000. We received a big payment earlier than expected, so the numbers are a little bit inflated, but this one is tracking as anticipated as well. Overall, we received about $2 million or 10% of budget. It's just too early to tell with regards to TOT. So this is TOT for the past 6 months. The dark teal columns are for this year, and the gray columns are for the year prior. And you can see that for from April to about July, we have not been hitting our numbers as compared to the year prior. August, we did a little bit better, and September, we're about the same, so there's some silver lining there, but we're really hoping that the August and September will kind of stick and kind of create a trend. Unfortunately, it hasn't been that way for the past year and some change. We didn't hit our TOT number last year, so it's possible we don't hit it this year, but we still can't really tell yet. On the expenditure side, we're looking pretty good though. We're at 11% of budget. So historically, we tend to do well expenditure-wise. We tend to come in under budget at the end of the year and recoup some savings. We're anticipating a little bit of savings this year, mostly from salary savings or vacancies or stuff like that. On the expenditure side, no real concern there. Here's how our reserves and fund balances look like. So the presentation after this is going to go more into it, but we ended the prior year with quite a bit of savings. So that has led to an unassigned fund balance of about 1.6 million. And so that's some good news there. So this budget, our reserves are at 8.6 million, which is a little bit underfunded. It's at 37% funded. Our policy's at 50%. So as of tonight, we're not recommending assigning those funds, at least until mid-year, until we know what our revenues look like, what our expenditures look like, and most likely the recommendation would be to assign any of the unassigned to send it back to the reserves. The last topic for this presentation is capital improvement projects or carry forwards. So carry forwards are monies that roll over from one fiscal year to another. So our capital improvement projects are multi-year endeavors, but our adopted budget is only for 1 year. So during the budgeting process, we have to roll over the funds for capital projects. And these monies have been previously approved by council in prior years or prior budget adjustments. So included in this package tonight is a recommendation to adjust those budgets for those funds only. We used to do this during the mid-year process, but since the audit is complete, we have that ending number decided to include it with this recommendation. In the bottom screen, you can see a summary of our capital improvement projects. All the projects that are ongoing have a total budget of about 34 million. We spent about 10 million thus far, and the remaining budget for those projects total an aggregate of 34.3. And included with the staff report is an attachment by capital project. With that, the recommendation is to accept the financial report for the quarter ended on September 30th, 2024, and authorize the Administrative Services Director to make budgetary entries to account for previously approved carry-forward funds related to capital improvement projects. And with that, I will take any questions.
Do you have any questions? No.
I have one, but it may not be something you can answer. Has anybody in the finance department looked at the potential amount of revenue if the Hyatt were to be built? What the TOT from that might be?
We have not, but that would be interesting, and we can definitely start taking a look at that, yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know, it might be a good thing to look at, especially since we're still in the process of deciding whether or not the Hyatt is going to be built. But if it turned out that the Hyatt would be a great contributor of TOT, it might make the city look more favorably on it, or folks look more favorably.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions or comments? What do we need? What do you need from us? Are we? You need a motion?
Yes, yes, please.
You have a motion, please.
I move that we accept the financial report for the quarter ended on September 30th, 2024, and authorize the Administrative Service Director to make budgetary entries to account for previously approved carry-forward funds related to the capital improvement projects.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Brownstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Penrose?
Yes.
Councilmember Reddick? Yes. Vice Mayor Rareback?
Yes.
Mayor Jimenez?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Move on to item 3D.
Okay, as alluded to, this presentation is about the annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ended in June 30th, 2024, which is last year in the entirety. So the annual comprehensive financial report, also known as an ACFR, is the city's audited financial statements. Every year, the city has an independent auditor that comes and audits our financial books. It's a best practice for cities, essentially to confirm the numbers and to oversee the accounting process of a city. It's about a 200-page document, but I think the best sections of it that are more easy to read is the transmittal letter and the management discussion and analysis. So this year is a little bit different. We're not asking for approval of the ACFR tonight. It's not 100% final, but we are anticipating that it's going to be ready in the next few days. So what's included here is the draft for discussion. The numbers are done. Essentially, what's left is grammatical errors and formatting and things like that the auditors are finishing up. The very high-level highlights are as follows. So we ended the fiscal year better than anticipated, but the deficit still exists. And this is mostly because of rising costs of our existing services and stagnant major revenues or ongoing factors of concern. And as mentioned previously, TOT continues to be uncertain for us. On the screen is how our revenues fared out last fiscal year. As you can see with TOT, we came up short by about $450K. Most of that came in the last 3 months, April, May, June, which I showed in the slide in the last presentation. Property taxes, we did a little bit better. Half of that is vehicle in lieu fees, and the other half is base property taxes. Sales and use tax, we came up a little short by about 120K. This is not too surprising considering that sales tax, some of it is paid by visitors, so when TOT is down, sales tax goes down a bit. Other revenues, we made more than what we expected by about 800K, and that is little gains in a lot of places. So investment income, planning and permit fees, and recreation fees. Overall, our revenues, we made about 750K more, which is good because that offsets the TOT loss. On the expenditure side, the city managed to save about $2.3 million. So as council knows, when the deficit came to be, we've been working very intentfully trying to look at our expenditures and pull back things that were more discretionary and really hold off on things as we try to work through it. Some of the things that we were able to achieve last fiscal year was a lot of salary savings from vacancies, holding those vacancies open before filling them right away. Some of those vacancies still exist, so that's why we're anticipating a little bit of savings this year as well. Midway through the year, we adjusted some capital projects, things that we saw that maybe we can hold back on or not use as much funds towards. We were successful in negotiating our public safety contracts, getting a bit of a credit or a break, and then also debt refinancing with our 880 Stone Pine. So it's quite a bit of money. However, most of those savings are one-time in nature, so it's not a long-term benefit, but having that extra money in the bank really gives us more of a runway to make more permanent structural changes. Last year, we had budgeted that our deficit would be about 4.9, but we ended at about 1.8. So looking ahead, this is a very similar chart from the last presentation. Unassigned balances total about 1.6 million. Measure R, which was the sales tax increase that we have as our next presentation. Those revenues are not included in this because we don't think we will receive not a lot this fiscal year. So we're looking to program those in for fiscal year 25-26. And as last mentioned is that after this presentation, staff will return next council meeting to approve the final ACFR. So the recommendation is just to receive the annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2024 update. And with that, I will take any questions.
Do we have any questions? Questions? Yeah.
I do have a comment. No question. Unless you have anyone. Oh, right. You want to do the question?
Questions first? Yeah.
On page, I think it's 68 of the document, or 68 of the PDF, it looks like, the discussion of net position. And there's a statement at the bottom that says net position reflects the difference between assets and liabilities and may serve over time as a useful indicator of a government's financial position. Can you just briefly discuss your assessment of our net position? Any weaknesses that you see or strengths in the news about the net position?
Yeah, I find our net position to be fairly strong. It's positive. So let me back up. Net position is a governmental way of saying net worth if you were an individual. So for government, it's net position, essentially what we have against who we owe. And we have more stuff than things that we owe. So that's always a good thing to have. The more technical thing is that our net position, our unrestricted portion of it, meaning that our cash, our investments, things that we can access very quickly, is about 25% of our net worth. So some agencies find themselves in a situation where their net worth is tied into buildings, and streets, and cars, and physical assets that don't provide value to, provide services. So so I think our position is pretty strong. GFOA, which is a overseeing government board, recommends 16%. So at 16%. So us at 25, I think we're doing pretty good.
But it's always better to be more liquid?
It's always better to be more liquid, yes.
Through the mayor, I'll just share, we have done really well having strong reserves and a strong financial position. But I will always caution us as a smaller city, I feel like we're more volatile. And so we should always be pushing more reserves, better net position, always, any opportunity we can, because small shocks will have a greater impact on us than a larger city. So we're in the right place, but we can keep doing better, which is essentially what you said.
Yeah, well, for instance, we might have a hard time selling beechwood, to accrue funds, right? It's basically undevelopable. So that was just the point, in that we want to keep that percentage high, like Ken was talking about.
Comment, questions, comments?
Yeah, thanks a lot for the report. And, there's only 5 people left in the room. And this is like always to me, one of the most important things that we do is look at the budget. And, there's a lot of talk in the elections this last year, next door, about, budget deficits, overspending, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to emphasize that last year at this time we predicted, was it a $4.4 million deficit or 4.9, 4.4, I think. And now we've got that down to 1.8. So we have actually, through a number of actions, affirmative actions, saved 2.6 million. Didn't backfill positions. We cut costs across all departments by 10%. And all this happened without, well, if anything, some decreases in occupancy tax. And we did pass Revenue R. So compared to this time last year, we are looking significantly better. And I think we're on a much better course with our deficit. And I just really want to emphasize that for those who are really concerned about where we're heading. And there were structural changes that were made, which recommended each time that was necessary. And I commend staff for making those changes, in some cases requiring sacrifices in terms of staffing, and we've kept our level of service up. So good for Half Moon Bay, I say.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any more comments? Question? No, comment? Yeah.
Yeah, I would just like to say that I echo what Robert said, and I think that the reason that we are in better shape this year than we were last year is because of the hard work that staff has done to make it possible. It has not been easy for staff, and they bit the bullet and took it on and did it. And thank you.
Should I repeat the same thing, or are we good?
Motion.
I don't think we need a motion because it's not complete or, we just received it, yeah.
We're going to bring it back on consent for approval.
Yeah.
I did want to share, a question was asked on the last item, and sometimes it takes a minute to get stuff. You asked about the TOT projections for the Hyatt. These are obviously very preliminary, but this is the wonder of having our chamber exec, who also administers our hotel business improvement district and tracks this information. Current estimates are probably about $1 million a year of TOT. I think there's probably a significant margin of error on that right now. We don't know how a new hotel might impact occupancy of other hotels, how long it'll take to ramp up, but this would be one of our higher, if the Hyatt were to be approved in the future, it would eventually be one of our higher revenue generating hotels from the city's standpoint, just based on the size of the proposed property and the price point that we would expect, so.
Thank you, that's
So
great.
take it with a grain of salt, but
Yeah.
it's not an insignificant number either.
Great, thank you.
And thanks to Crystalline for having that number handy.
Thank you. We are ready for the next item.
Ken, do you need anything else from council as far as direction, or we have what we need to finalize this and bring it back on consent? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
All right, and then this is the last piece of it. This is the Measure R sales tax implementation. So quick background and context, as council knows, a year and a half ago, a structural deficit was about $4 million that was identified. It caused by increases in existing services and a dip in our TOT revenues. This brought us to a situation where our deficit is structural, so we need more permanent adjustments in order to resolve. In the past year, we've been working, as mentioned previously, with looking at our budget and looking at our expenditures, going back and consulting with our finance committee. And one thing as far as a revenue enhancement that floated to the top was the sales tax increase, about ½ cent, that council approved to ask the voters directly. Voters approved Measure R, and this would bring the sales tax increase, the sales tax to 9.875. Now we're here at implementation. So the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, the CDTFA, is a state agency that manages the collection of sales tax and the distribution of those monies to the cities. They will notify our businesses. We also plan to do a little bit of outreach to our businesses. The sales tax will be effective April 1st of 2025. But our first disbursement of those monies is not estimated until June. There's a bit of a lag. So effective April, we probably won't start seeing the monies in June. The estimated additional revenue is about $2 million. Because we won't see it until so late into the year. I'm not recommending programming that into the budget, but instead programming that into the following fiscal year. And Jessica will talk about what we will need, or what the CDTFA will need.
Yes, thanks, Ken. So the team that worked on Measure R, after the election and the measure passing, we've met internally to discuss now implementing the measure. And so we've reached out to the tax administration, and they gave us a number of documents that need to be approved by the city council. And so that's what's before you tonight, is a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign 2 separate agreements, and then also a resolution that talks about review of our tax records. We also, after the meeting on the 16th, when we certify the elections canvas, we will then sign the ordinance and add those to the package and send everything to the tax administration by December 27th for the tax to actually be implemented next year. And as Ken mentioned, the tax administration will notify our businesses. However, we are working with our Economic and Community Vitality Division, as well as the Chamber of Commerce, to do our own outreach to businesses prior to that notification, and then also making sure that we notify the public as well throughout the spring before the tax takes effect in April. So, next slide, please. And so the recommendation tonight is to adopt the resolution authorizing Matthew to sign those agreements, adopting the resolution regarding examination of our tax records, and then also appropriating $175,000 of Measure R revenue for the preparatory costs. So we do have to pay the tax administration to implement our tax, but we'll be able to offset this with revenue from the tax initially. And it would be a one-time fee. So we are happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. It says that there's the one-time setup cost, and then it says that the CDTFA will be taking a percentage of the sales tax revenue for their ongoing costs. Is there, what does that amount to? I'm just curious. I mean, you can't do anything about that. We can't stop them from taking it, but.
Last I looked at it, it was between 14 and 15K a year. Yeah.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments? No? No. See. Can I have a motion, please?
I move that we adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute agreements with the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration for implementation of a local transaction and use tax, and 2, adopt a resolution authorizing the examination of the sales, use, and transactions tax records for the city, and 3, appropriate $175,000 of Measure R revenue for the preparatory costs incurred by the CDTFA necessary to administer the city's transactions and use tax.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Brownstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Penrose? Yes. Councilmember Reddick?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rohrbeck?
Yes.
Mayor Jimenez?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We move on to item 3F.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I will be presenting this item. I do not have a PowerPoint presentation for this one. So this item is the second amendment to the employment contract for the city manager. As background, the city entered into the agreement with the city manager here, Matthew Chittister, in August of 2022. And that agreement has been amended once in December of 2023. And it is customary and part of the contract that the council conducts an annual performance evaluation of the city manager. And that process was completed just last week, actually, I believe on Tuesday. And direction was given to the council's negotiator, myself, and the facilitator to bring back a contract amendment. I would want to just note that generally speaking, contracts with city managers and agency executives need to be placed on regular city council agendas. That's part of state law. And they can't just be on the consent calendar. They actually have to be on the regular business calendar, such that the council or the staff can actually do an oral report summarizing the key terms of the agreement. So I will go ahead and summarize the key terms of this amendment. So the amendment, if approved, would extend the term, which is currently set to expire August 2025. It would extend it by 9 months to May 19th, 2026. It would also increase the manager's compensation by 3%. That's commensurate with other city department head staff. That 3% would be effective July 1, 2024, as was the other unrepresented department head staff. And it would also set forth a annual CPI adjustment consistent with other executive staff. Or if that's above the state CPI, then the state CPI would apply. Again, this is a very regulated field and consistent with state law, so that's what state law says, and so we're going with that. And then finally, the amendment does make a modification to the contract language regarding the use of an independent facilitator for future performance evaluations. And I'll just note that the proposed amendment itself is attached to the staff report, and there is a red line showing the proposed changes. The original contract is also attached. So that completes my presentation.
Excuse me.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I don't see where the red line is. The red line changes.
I use the word red line, but it's actually track changes. That would be, attachment 4.
Attachment 4. I don't have attachment 4.
I have it here. I'm on the website. Oh. It's attachment 4. There's an attachment 4 on my agenda.
The agenda. Yeah.
I do not see attachment 4, no. And attachment 3 is amendment number 1. Yeah, my PDF only goes to page 261.
Did you need to download it last week?
I downloaded it.
If you go to our website. Yeah, go to our website.
Because if you download it, you can download it. It doesn't refresh. You have to go to the city's
Can't be reached.
The agenda of the packet.
The agenda.
Okay, it's here. It's called amendment number 2.
Attachment 4 is amendment 2, yeah.
Okay, this is the line through, this is red line.
Well, why didn't it give it to me when I,
Thanks for everyone's patience. We're going to go ahead and screen share it, just so everyone has it. This attachment 4 was added on Monday, and so it's possible that if you're looking at a version from last week, that it wouldn't have attachment 4 showing, but we'll go ahead and pull it up for the council and anyone at home. Thanks, Lisa. So if you could just maybe just scroll down a little bit, if you can. So this just shows the track changes. The the first section, you can stop right there, thanks. So this is the term, and as you can see, the proposed term of the agreement would be through May 19th, 2026. And then the next change is to the language regarding performance evaluations. And maybe Lisa, you just scroll down a little bit further. Oh yeah, make it bigger, that's better. Great. Yeah, and this just refers to the use of the outside facilitator selected by mutual agreement of the council and the city manager. And it would be that at the option of the city manager. And then the third and final change is to the salary, and that's as I summarized previously.
So when was this new attachment added to the?
It was added on Monday.
It's not very convenient for the public, especially if no notice is made that the agenda has been modified to accommodate a new document. I find that problematic.
I will say this wasn't the ideal timing. The performance evaluation concluded on Tuesday, and so I got direction to bring this forward. And the staff report noted that the attachment showing the amendment would be added. So it was added on Monday. I don't know if there's any other way we could have shown it on our current system, but.
Communicated that a change had been made. I think that would have been appropriate. Yeah.
Were there other questions?
No. We do have some public comment.
Dan Haggerty.
Yes, hi, Dan Haggerty here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I just want to start out by saying, most people already know this. I really love, the coast side where I live, the city of Half Moon Bay. I live in El Granada. I am in Half Moon Bay a lot. I care a lot about our community. I am concerned with jumping the gun with this decision. It appears that it's the last item on the last functional meeting of the existing council. There's a new there are new council members that were voted in. And I feel that they should have a say on this. The full information on this item was not on the surface of the meeting agenda item. And this can be construed as misleading to the public. So I will urge that you wait on this and vote no tonight on this item. Nothing against the great city manager, but I just don't see that this vote has to be made tonight. And look forward to more community. Like I heard earlier, that the room's empty right now, essentially empty. So let's do this vote when there has a full opportunity for better community participation. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Anybody else?
There's no more public comment. Would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. The current council is the council that has worked with Matthew Chittister over the past 4 years. 7 years. 7 years for each of us? No, 4 of us for some of us. At any rate, at least 4 years. The new council members, God bless them, they're going to be wonderful and I welcome them aboard. But they have no knowledge of Matthew Chittister's work or what he's done for this council or how he's helped us. They didn't hire him. They didn't approve of him. They didn't give him an outstanding recommendation. So I think that's absurd. I won't even consider it. I make a motion that we accept the amendment number 2 to the August 20, 2022 City Manager Employment Agreement with Matthew Chittister to increase the annual base salary from $272,950 to $281,138.50 effective July 1, 2024, and provide for future cost of living increases consistent with what is received by other city executive staff or with state CPI, whichever is lower.
Second.
May I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Brownstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Penrose?
Yes.
Councilmember Reddick?
Hearing no opposition from our newly elected council members, and knowing that this was a negotiated compromise, I'm going to approve it tonight. Yes.
Vice Mayor Rohrbach?
An enthusiastic yes.
Mayor Jimenez?
Yes, of course.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Do you need anything else from us? No? That's it? Are we coming to the end of the meeting? Any commission of committee updates?
I think we covered commission updates for Planning Commission through the items tonight, and I'll just let people know in December and November, because of the holidays, we consolidate those 2 months into a single Rec Commission meeting, which will be held next Wednesday evening at the library at 6 p.m.
Thank you for the update. Any future discussion, possible agenda items? No. City Council reports? No. Meeting adjourned. Thank you much. Sold.